Okay, I said. I collected Turtle out of the tire and carried her to the back of the shop. It was a big old two-story place, and there at the back of the garage was an area with a sink and some shelves, some folding chairs painted blue, a metal table, and a Mr. Coffee. I scooted another flat over next to the chairs and set Turtle down in it. I was glad to be away from that wall of tires, all of them bulged into the burst. Hanging around here would be like living in a house made of bombs. The sound of the air hose alone gave me the willies. These come in pretty handy, I said, trying to be cheerful. I know what I can use those two flat tires for. I got some peanut butter crackers, Maddie said, leaning over Turtle. Will she eat peanut butter? She eats anything. Just don't let her get a hold of anything you don't want to part with, like your hair, I said. Maddie's braids were swinging into the danger zone. She poured coffee into a mug that said Bill with the capital B and handed it to me. She poured a cup of coffee for herself within a white mug with cartoon rabbits all over it. They were piled all over each other like the rocks in Texas Canyon. After a minute, I realized the rabbits were having sex in about 1 trillion different positions. I couldn't figure out this woman. This was definitely not 1-800-the-Lord. You must have come a ways, she said. I saw your plates. You're from Kentucky, or plate rather. You don't have to have them both front and back in Kentucky. No, just the back. Here you got them on the front too. I guess so the cops can get you coming or going. She handed Turtle a peanut butter cracker, which she grabbed at both hands. It broke into smithereens, and she got such big sad eyes I thought she was going to cry. It's all right, honey, Maddie said. You put that one in your mouth and I'll get you another one. Turtle did, and I was amazed. She had never been this kind of Miss Hodge. Miss Maddie was clearly accustomed to dealing with kids. Are you on the road? She asked me. Have been up to now, from Kentucky with a stopover in Oklahoma. We're out to see what we can see. And now I guess we'll see how we like Tucson. Oh, you will. I ought to know. I lived here my whole life. And that's a rare breed, let me tell you. I don't think there's hardly a soul in Tucson anymore that was born here. Most of them come from, somewhere out of state. My husband Samuel was from Tennessee. He came out as a young man for his asthma, and never could get used to the dry. I loved it, though. I guess it's all in what you're used to. I guess, I said. I was dying to know about the name of the place, but couldn't think of a polite way to bring it up. Is this tire place part of a national chain or something like that? I finally asked. That sounded polite, but dumb. She laughed. No, me and my husband started up. His dad was a mechanic, so Sam was a grease monkey born and raised. He was the one that named the place. He was kind of fanatical, you might say. Bless his soul. She handed Turtle another cracker. The kid was eating like a house on fire. He got some Mexican kids that do the painting out front. I never did change it. It's something different. Lots of people stop in for curiosity. Does the baby want some juice? She needs something to wash down that peanut butter cracker. Don't put yourself out. I can get her some water out of the tap. I'll run and get some apple juice. It won't be but a minute. I thought she meant she was actually going to a store, but she went through a door at the back of the shop. Apparently there was more to this building, including a refrigerator with apple juice in it. I wonder if Maddie lived on the premises, maybe upstairs. While she was gone, 2 men stopped by almost at exactly the same time. Although they were not together, one of them asked for Matilda. He wanted an alignment and to pick up a tire for his ORV. He said it was as though everybody ought to know what an ORV was, and maybe have 1 or 2 at home. The other man had on a black shirt with the right priest collar and blue jeans of all things. I wondered if maybe he was some kind of junior varsity priest. I really had no idea. They didn't have Catholics in Pittman. She'll be back in about 2 seconds, I said. She just went to get something. The ORV fellow waited, but the priest said he would come back later. He seemed a little jumpy. As he drove away, I noticed there was a whole family packed into the back of his station wagon. They looked like Indians. "Well, how in the world are you, Roger?" Maddie said when she came back. "Just make yourself at home, hon. This won't take but a minute," she told me, and handed me an orange cup with a little drinking spout, which must have been designed especially for small children. I wondered if it was hard to fill it through that little spout. Once Turtle got her hands on this cup, she didn't want to give it up. Roger drove his car onto a platform that was attached to a red machine with knobs and dials on it. Maddie started up the machine, which made the front tires of Roger's Toyota spin around. And after a minute, she laid down on one shoulder and adjusted something under the front. She didn't get that dirty either. I'd never seen a woman with this kind of know-how. It made me feel proud somehow. In Plymouth, if a woman tried to have her own tire store, she had been run out of business. That or the talk would have been made up your ears curl up like those dried apricot things. If Jesus is indeed the Lord, I said to myself, he surely will not let this good smart woman get blown sky high by an overfilled tire. Or me either, while he's at it. The two of them went out to the wall of tires and pulled down a couple of smallish fat ones. They hit the ground with a smack and caused both Turtle and me to jump. Roger picked up one of them and dribbled it like a basketball. He and Maddie were talking, and Roger was making various vibrating noises with his lips. I suppose he's trying to describe something that was wrong with his ORV. Maddie listened in interested ways. She was really nice to Roger, even though he was bald and red-faced and kind of bossy. She didn't give him any lip. When she came back, Turtle had drunk all her juice and was banging the cup against the tire, demanding more in her speechless way. I started getting embarrassed. "You want more juice, don't you?" Maddie said to Turtle in a grown-up-to-baby voice. "It's a good thing I brought the whole bottle down in the first place." "Please don't go out of your way," I said. "We put you out enough already. I have to tell you the truth. I can't even afford to buy one tire right now, much less two. Not for a while, anyway, until I find work and a place for us to live." I picked up Turtle, but she went on banging the cup against my shoulder. "Why, honey, don't feel bad. I wasn't trying to make a sale. I just thought you two needed some cheering up." She pried the cup out of Turtle's hand and refilled it. The top snapped right off. I hadn't even thought of that. "You must have grandbabies around," I said. Something like that." She handed the cup back to Turtle, and she sucked on it hard, making a noise like a pond frog. I wondered what exactly could be something like grandbabies. "It's so dry out here, kids will dehydrate real fast," Maddie told me. "They'll just dry right up on you. You have to watch out for that." "Oh, right," I said. "I wonder how many other kids were lurking around waiting to take a child's life when you weren't paying attention." I was useless. I was crazy to think I was doing this child a favor by whisking her away from the Cherokee Nation. Now she would probably end up mummified in Arizona. "What kind of work you looking for?" Maddie rinsed the coffee cups and set them upside down on the shelf. A calendar above the shelf showed a bare-chested man in a feather headdress and heavy gold arm bracelets, carrying a woman who looked dead or passed out. I've seen that before. "Anything, really. I have experience in house cleaning, x-rays, urine tests, and red blood counts, and picking bugs off bean vines." Maddie laughed. "That's a peculiar resume. I guess I had a peculiar life," I said. It was hot. Turtle was spilling her spit and juice down my shoulder blade. And I was getting more depressed by the minute. "I guess you don't have bean vines around here," I said. "That kind of limits my career options." "Well, heck yes, girl, we got bean vines," Maddie said. "Even purple ones. Did you ever see purple beans?" "Not that we're alive," I said. "Well, come back here and let me show you something." We went through the door at the back, which led through a little room jam-packed with stuff. There was a desk covered with papers, and all around against the walls there was waist-high stacks of old National Geographics and popular magazines and something called The Beacon. which showed Jesus in long swirling robes floating above a lighthouse. Behind the desk there was a staircase and another door that led out the back. I could hear someone thumping around overhead in stocking feet. Outside was a bright, wild wonderland of flowers and vegetables and auto parts. Heads of cabbage and lettuce sprouted out old tires, and an entire rusted-out Thunderbird, minus the wheels, had nasturtiums blooming out of the windows like Mama's hen and chicken and chick pots on the front porch at home. A kind of teepee frame made of CB antennas was all over, grown with cherry tomato vines. "Can you believe tomatoes on the 2nd of January?" Maddie asked. I told her no, that I couldn't. Frankly, that was only the beginning of what I couldn't believe. Maddie's backyard looked like the place where old cars died and go to heaven. Usually we'll get a killing for us by Thanksgiving, but this year it stayed warm. The beans and tomatoes just won't quit. "Here, doll, bite down. Don't swallow it whole." She handed me a little tomato. "Okay," I said, before I realized she popped one into Turtle's mouth and was talking to her. It hailed this morning," I reminded Maddie. "We just about froze to death for a few minutes out there." "Oh, did it? Whereabouts?" "On the freeway, about 5 blocks from here." "Didn't get here. We just had rain. Hail might have gotten the tomatoes." "Sometimes it will. Here's the beans I was telling you about." Sure enough, they were 100% purple. Stem, leaves, flowers, and pods. "Gosh," I said. "The Chinese lady next door gave them to me." She waved toward a corrugated tin fence that I hadn't even noticed before. It was covered with vines, and the crazy quilt garden kept right on going on the other side, except without car parts. The purple beans appeared to go trooping on down the block, climbing over anything in their paths. They're originally from seeds she brought over with her in 1907, Maddie told me. Can you picture that? Keeping the beans, the same beans all those years? I said I could. I could picture these beans marching right over the Pacific Ocean, starting from somebody's garden in China and ending up right here. Maddie's place seemed homey enough, but living in the hustle-bustle of downtown Tucson was like moving to a foreign country I'd never heard of, or a foreign decade. When I crossed the Rocky Mountain time, I had to set my watch back 2 hours and got thrown into the future. It's hard to explain how this felt. I went to high school in the 70s, and you had to understand that in Pittman County, it may as well have been the 50s. Pittman was 20 years behind the nation in practically everything in every way you can think of, except the rate of teenage pregnancies. For instance, we were the last place in the country to get the dial system. Up until 1973, you just picked up the receiver and said, "Marge, give me my Uncle Roscoe," or whoever. The telephone office was on the 3rd floor of the courthouse, and the operators could see everything around Main Street, including the bank, the drugstore, and Dr. Fincher's office. She would tell you if his car was there or not. In Tucson, it was clear that there was nobody overlooking us all. We would just have to find our own way. Turtle and I took up residence in the Hotel Republic, which rented by the week and was within walking distance of Jesus' Lord's. Maddie said it would be all right to leave my card there for the time being. This kind of her, although I had visions of turnips growing out of it if I didn't get it in running order soon.